Hi, and welcome back to Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. We are super excited for today's episode. It is Jamie and I without any guests, and of course, Greg in the background paying attention and listening to every last thing we say. I can't. Hi, welcome back to Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie. We are excited today because it's just us.
It's just us.
Not that we don't love having our guests, but I love having just us too. So,
and it's always fun because we really don't know where the conversation will go when it's just us. And sometimes it's nice just to catch up on what's going on with each other, but also in our community. And you just got back from vacation.
I did.
So tell us about it.
Yeah. So it was a big one. I normally go to Texas in the summer for this particular vacation and spend it with my sister and my mom and my family that live out there, and don't really do much, other than just get family time in. And so this year I decided that I was going to do something different, which turned out to be so wonderful. Started in Denver, so I still got to see my sister and my brother-in-law, my nephews, and spend the weekend with my brother-in-law's family. They were having a family reunion, and so they included me on that, and it was wonderful. And we went to a Rockies game and saw that. It was Star Wars Day, and so
fun.
Yeah, so they had all kinds of crazy things going on. Yeah, and then from there, I actually came home and repacked, and then one of my cousins and one of my close friends too, her and I took off to San Francisco.
Fun.
Yeah.
Which is why I have a San Francisco mug.
Yes.
Because Addie brought me a gift. And I've never been to San Francisco.
I know.
And it's on my list of
so
places.
Surprised by that because you would fit in. So you'd love it. I know you'll love it.
I would. I love traveling anywhere, actually.
Yeah.
I always like, going to new places. So, but thanks for my birthday present.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I know every little corner I turned, I was like, oh, Jamie needs to be here. Oh my gosh, Jamie would love this. Jamie would really like this. And even Laura a couple of times. And the coffee mug too, when I turned around and was holding it. And I started to say your name, and she finished it. And she was like, that's for Jamie.
It's got a lot of color. Just
yes.
me. No, but thank you. I did have a birthday while you were gone.
Yes.
And thanks everybody for all the birthday wishes. I was overwhelmed by people reaching out. It was a great birthday.
Good.
So, but tell the audience a little bit about, because you had a significant post that you put on Facebook while you were there about, again, sort of recognizing and acknowledging and celebrating your sobriety. And you put that on Facebook. So it's not something I'm just saying. But for people that have followed us or are listening to us, that's been a very important part of your journey.
Right.
And also your story.
Right. Yeah. So on July 20th, that was actually Laura's birthday. And so I knew coming up to that day that I was going to reach a specific number of days, which was 2,300 days.
Wow.
But because it was her birthday, I had completely forgotten about it. And so we did everything for her, and we hiked the Golden Gate Bridge, and we literally went from one parking lot to the other and back. And you and I talked about it the other day, but it's like just under 4 miles to do that.
You should put that picture on our Over a Cup of Coffee Facebook page, just the Golden Gate part of it.
I will, yeah.
Not all the rest of
my big old post.
Just that. That is a neat photo.
Yeah, so it is. And I got some really great pictures that I haven't even posted yet. I'm going to actually print some. But yeah, so 2,300 days, I remembered after I got home, and we had taken a shot of me standing under the bridge, all excited. And because at that moment I had it popped into my head. Oh my gosh, you're doing something 6 years ago you couldn't even fathom.
Right.
Literally could not fathom doing that. I'm going to get emotional.
Yeah.
But I get to do so many things because I chose recovery.
Right.
Because I chose myself. Because I stepped up and said, I'm going to start living for me. And so many people find that selfish. But you have to be selfish.
You do.
To a certain degree. And I still love big. I still welcome and value all my relationships, but I have boundaries now that I didn't have before. And I'm very choosy about the people I allow into my inner circle and into my space.
Right.
Because you have to. Not everybody's healed, and not everybody's at a place where they can handle the place that we're each in.
Right.
You know, you're in a different level of life than I am, and you know, there's thank you.
Magic Kleenex
always.
Box.
But you know, I know that you guard your time and your space and your energy from specific people, and it's important that we do that. If we let everybody in that wants access to us, then we start losing lots of pieces of ourselves, and that's where we make poor decisions for ourselves because we're too busy worrying about what everybody else wants from us and what everybody else is doing. And so, you know, that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned through this last 6 years of my journey, 6.5 years almost, is being very careful with my time and my energy.
I think for your story and people listening who maybe have been, you know, part of recovery, or it's not been because you're always in it, but I mean, who are in that journey and or are thinking about making that step or making a significant adjustment in their life, I think what is important in what you're saying is it's not what you're necessarily giving up. Because I think we focus, especially, it can be anything. It can be food, it could be alcohol, and you're thinking, you focus on, I'm giving this up. And what you're talking about, where you are in your part of this journey, is now what you're getting.
I'm getting
you're
so much.
Getting so much. And in friendship and truthfulness and things you're doing, like this trip you were talking about.
Yeah.
And so
experiences. I'm getting experiences that, you know, I've traveled to San Francisco before, and it was a great trip. It was, you know, it's always great. But you know, there's times in my past when I was still drinking, and it wasn't great, and I would drink to black out. And so if I was on a trip, I would miss out on big portions of it because I chose to drink it away.
Right.
And now everybody can drink. I don't care. Have fun. Do whatever you want. But I'm not going to because I have to go climb 4 big hills in San Francisco because I don't know how to read a map. I can't do that drunk. You know, but so many little things, like, you know, I got to ride the trolley car and I got yelled at for that because I brought a coffee on and I didn't know you were supposed to have a drink on there.
Well, that just
so
wouldn't work for me. I have coffee in my hand all the time.
They did wait for us to finish our coffee,
nice.
And then they let us get back on. But you know, I get to remember those little things, and I get
so it's a whole different experience for you than it was
completely different. Yeah, completely different. And I got to just, you know, I also just be me.
Right.
I'm not trying to keep up with anybody for anything. I'm not always feeling like I have to be on.
Right.
And that was something that the alcohol helped me with in social situations was we shouldn't always be on. It's hard. It's not what we're built for. We have to have moments of quiet and silence and introspection.
Right.
And we have to. If you don't, you're going to crash and burn no matter what you're doing. And the alcohol kept me at a place of numbness to keep just going through the motions.
Right.
But I was never experiencing full happiness, peace, joy, bliss, all of the things that I'm getting to experience in such huge doses now.
Well, and just again for our audience, that you are very out there with your
I'm totally
journey,
open about
and
it.
so this wasn't anything that I surprised.
Put me on the spot.
Yeah, I didn't put you on the spot because it's a very important part of you. And then we have been friends for a long time, and people that know me know I like a glass of wine.
Yeah.
I mean, and that has been for our friendship because we both have boundaries, but we can be honest with each other and have a really good friendship, even though you're in a different place than I am, but we are very respectful about where each other is at. And that's why I just like to give you that opportunity, because I think that's such a big piece of your story. I don't know if we always talk about it as much on here as maybe you would like to, but I always am respectful too. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
And I don't want to make it all about that always, but it's such a critical piece to our humanity. So many people are suffering and struggling with addiction in many forms.
Yes.
There's so many different forms: shopping, food, smoking, drugs, alcohol, sex, being addicted to relationships. You know, I watch people jump from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and they never stop and actually let the dust settle and figure out who they really are and what they really want out of being partnered with somebody. And you know, that's another piece of my journey in this too, is that I kind of, with my last big relationship, I finally just stopped and said, you know what, I'm going to take some time, because I'm not fully healing every time I jump back in. And now I'm still human. I still make errors. I still have poor judgment with things, but
well, and I know this may not be what you want to talk about, and that's okay. What it's so funny when it's just you and I, because then, but you did, and I just thought I wanted to recognize that post because you shared it with the number of days, and I think that is such a huge accomplishment, and
it is huge,
and discipline to be able to do that, and a lot of people are in that same place, and I just think it's good to acknowledge and congratulate and recognize that's these milestones that you keep continuing to hit in this journey, and it's just important.
Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, at 100 days of my journey, I had taken off for 29 days. I ran away. I ran away to Texas and the Gulf Coast, and I went to San Antonio and Austin and New Orleans and Biloxi and South Padre Island, and I had a lot of people that were like, you're 100 days sober and you're hitting like all these party towns.
Right.
But I needed to. I needed to go and see if I enjoyed live music in a bar, at a bar top, talking to all the people, or if it was just about the drinking. I needed to know that I could go and immerse myself into the middle of all of it and be okay, because I knew coming home, all of our involvement with our events and the things that I help with and I enjoy doing, I didn't want to have to change those things because I couldn't be comfortable around alcohol and around people enjoying themselves while they're having it. I enjoyed myself greatly, but then I always took it too far, and that's the reason I had to stop. And so, you know, but not everybody has to.
I was going to say, I'm guessing for many people that would not.
No, and you know, and
for them,
and I was actually, you know, my foundation started in AA, and it's highly, you know, they highly recommended that you don't do that. One of the things that they say is if you go to the barber shop and hang out long enough, eventually you're going to get a haircut.
Oh, right. Yeah.
and so, you know, and that was always kind of in the back of my mind, that, you know, this, you figure it out. You judge how you feel, which I do. I'm a very, very solid judge of the way that I feel and what I can handle and what I can't. And I know my limit. I know if we're going to be at an event where there's a lot of drinking happening, you know, I don't know if anybody notices, but there's a lot of times that maybe I only come for just a little bit. And sometimes I don't come at all.
But that's what you have to do. That's what we were talking about, boundaries. And I think we all know where we need to kind of draw some lines. I think we know as we get older.
Right.
And I'm hoping, and this is a, you know, crazy segue, but with the Women's Summit. Because I think with that whole theme of reinventing yourself. Right. And that sometimes comes from being confident enough in your life to make changes.
Make a massive change.
And create boundaries and take new steps and new adventures and new risks that maybe in your 20s you're not feeling confident enough to do. You're still figuring out your life and who you are,
where your path is, all of those things. Yeah.
That whole idea of, you know, reinventing yourself in terms of personal, career, community, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about the Women's Summit, but I think that's something you learn on a personal level just as you get older and you have life experiences and you figure out what you are ready to let go that isn't serving,
what served its purpose or maybe never served a great purpose and it's time to go ahead and release it. And I know I've been thinking about the Women's Summit a lot and especially these last few days with this landmark 2,300 days passing and what it took, because it took courage that I didn't believe I had. It definitely took confidence that I also thought I didn't have, and a strength that was divine. It wasn't me. It was very definitely my God that said, "Hey, sister, we're done. You're not going to do this because I have bigger plans for you." And that's one of the things that like I joke with my mom about, because she knows, because she's heard it, and it literally I get the voice in my head, and it's not my voice. It's big and loud and booming, and he's like, hey, don't make me run you into a wall.
Yes, please, no.
You have got to change directions, and we're going to go this way, watch.
Right.
And I just have to. I don't have any say-so in it.
Well, and again, you know, you hit that milestone and you shared it, and sometimes being away gives us this sort of clarity because we're not in our normal space around our normal people, and you get away into a vacation or a different spot, and it can be just even taking a hike on a Saturday, but you get in that different environment, and it really allows you, because you're not so distracted by everything going on, that you can really think about things and perspective. And so
well, and I had like 3,000 miles of drive time.
That'll do it
too. And you know, and we traded off a little bit, but you know, that windshield time I always recommend to people is so valuable, especially when you're by yourself, because you do get to really think about everything. And for me, I love to turn everything off and be silent for a little while and really let my thoughts wander and work some things out. And I build a lot of businesses too in my head when I'm doing that. So Laura was laughing. She was like, I think you built 8 businesses on this trip.
In your head. Well, I hope you join the chamber with every single one of them.
I absolutely will.
So speaking of the Women's Summit, we do want to really start to really talk about that on the podcast because it's so important. And it is October 12th and 13th. It is here in Farmington, New Mexico, which again, for our listening audience, is in the 4 corners of the United States and the northwest corner of New Mexico. And last year we did live stream, or we did stream it because we were still coming out of COVID and there was a lot of concern about a live event. But we are doing it live this year in Farmington. But we have a way, if you want to come in and travel, obviously you can fly and come in, and there's some lodging packages that you can find on our website, which I'll give the name in a minute. But if you're within the 4 corners area, easy drive to come in for this summit. And I really think that our topic, our theme this year,
our lineup of speakers, I think it's going to be valuable for a lot of different people doing a lot of different things.
Right.
Because we built this year based off of a lot of the comments that we had from our surveys last year, wanting it to be more diverse, and I feel like we've hit like all of those pockets that people were asking for, and then added a few that I think are going to blow some people away.
I think so too. I'm really
excited
about it. But you can find out the information by going to the website, which is professionalwomens-summit.com, and we'll put the link up on this podcast on the Facebook. But if you're following or just listening on the podcast, just message us or ask us on the Facebook page, and we will let you know how you can get tickets, especially if you're in that 4 corners area. It'll really be worth your time to come in on the Wednesday morning and attend that networking session, really have that very focused time to network with other professionals, and then attend the summit on the following day. And this is not just for women, and I want to re-emphasize that because it is a professional women's summit, but I think all of our speakers, it's applicable to anybody in life who maybe is coming out of the last 2 years of weirdness and has looked at sort of reinventing, whether it's career or personal life or moving or just taking on something new, like starting a new business. I mean, who knows what it could be. But I think it's a theme that resonates with people, is this sort of throughout your life, you do reinvent yourself a number of times.
We transition so many times, and if you don't, that's where you end up being stagnant and not being happy in your life. Because, you know, and I know people that I hear them say, oh, I'm miserable, I'm not happy, I don't like, and I'm like, well, I haven't seen you change a single thing in the last 10 years, and you're still complaining about the same 5 things. And I'm like, all you have to do is stop doing that. Like, step over here.
And it can be difficult to do. I mean, I think if you're really, sometimes I think there's a fear that if you change, then you're going to be totally letting everything else in your life or those people go. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Sometimes
you have to
let some people go.
You have
in your
to.
changes.
And if they were meant to be in your life, they'll circle back around.
Right.
And then they'll come back better and be healthier for you. If they weren't, it's okay. Chalk it up. You experienced what you needed to. You learned what you needed to. You grew from what you needed to. And it's another chapter in your book.
Right.
Leave it there and move on. Speaking of books, and I was going to remember what it was called. Oh, my gosh. for the next podcast, I'll make sure I know what it's called.
Okay.
But we listened to an audiobook that was so good. So good. And dang it, I can't think of what it's called.
If it comes, you just pop it out.
I know, I will. I can't even. I can see the cover. It's got pink flowers on it. But just amazing. And it was, we were like literally on the edge of the seat in the car every time we were driving. And But yeah, so we listened to like the first half on the way there and then the last half on the way home. And every time that we had like kind of a longer drive in San Francisco to get around, we would like play it for a little bit to get back in. Yeah, it was so good.
Well,
if
you think of
it,
it,
so good. I will.
Or bring it. Yeah, the
I
next
will,
one
and
that
I'll post it on I'll post it on our page too.
So there's a lot of other stuff going on. We'll just kind of
do a
circle
rundown
back into what's happening here in Farmington, New Mexico, because we're so involved with these events. And we talk a lot about, a community reinventing itself, which is kind of what Farmington, where we live, is in that process. But one of the things that hasn't reinvented, that's still here, is after 50-some years, is the Connie Mack baseball tournament. This is a huge deal.
Yeah, it's the high school World Series of baseball.
Yes. And some of the Connie Mack players that start out in this tournament go pro. This is a big deal. And so some of our listeners may be familiar with the Connie Mack tournament, but that's going on right now. So baseball is just everywhere right now in Farmington. And then we kind of come out of the Connie Mack and we go right into our county fair, which if you're listening and think, Farmington, New Mexico, it is the second largest fair in the state, county fair, at just second to the state fair, which happens in Albuquerque. So that's a huge deal. It's a week-long event, and there's, the 4-H kids are showing their animals, and there's a carnival, and that's a whole week event.
Yeah, vendors, all kinds of things.
Huge. Yeah, so we have music, the fair.
I haven't even heard who
I know who they are.
Do you?
I think I can say. But I'm not going to in case I'm not supposed to.
I know. I was just going to say I usually see it pop up, but I haven't. So.
I know. I'm sure I can say, but I don't want to I don't want to say something wrong. So anyway, we have fair.
Kenny Chesty? I'm just kidding.
No, she said that, and that's not true, and that's not happening.
I'm just trying to
Kenny,
get
if
come
you're
stay at my hotel.
No, Kenny, if you're listening, we know you're not coming to the
But
fair.
we would like you to, and I have a special room for you. You can stay in the room that Dwayne Johnson stayed in.
All right. Well, you heard it from Addie, but and then we go right from the fair we get into September, which here in our area is probably one of the busiest. September and October because the weather is exceptional.
It's beautiful, yeah.
And so it's about
lots of photography.
Event a weekend, including the big Harvest Festival out at Wines at the San Juan. We have a big event with the Chamber, which is our Chili and Oktoberfest. This year we're combining that with another event that started last year, which is an Apple Fest, because Farmington, like so many places across the country, actually started out
primarily apple orchards.
Yeah, primarily apple orchards and agriculture.
All farming.
So we're kind of bringing that back in about our history and the apple orchards, and so we're sort of combining it with chili. And I think we're going to have an apple pie judging contest along with our chili.
Oh, good.
We're going to invite people to create an apple pie, and we're going to have our judges taste
Oh, they're going to love
that. Judge and award
a little
the best
bit of
apple pie.
sweet with the spicy.
Yeah. So if you are a chili cook, whether you're a home cook or a restaurant, or you have an amazing apple pie, we can fit you into this event. So that's coming up in October, and the very same weekend, there's another event going on in Aztec, which is the
Highland Games.
Yeah, the Highland Games,
Aztec
the Celtic
Highland Games,
festival. So that happens that weekend as well. So we have chili going on in one part of the region, and then we've got Celtic. You can get your kilts and your music and your haggis, and they do everything. All the games that normally go on. So they have that, and that's going on that exact same weekend. So there's a lot going on.
So much,
and we really want people to understand that if you come into Farmington, there's always going to be something to do. And that between you with the hotel and me with the chamber and all the stuff we're involved in, there really is something going on. Plus, right now we still we're in the middle of our outdoor theater. We had Randy West on last year talking about the importance of community
Pirates
theater.
of Penzance are on through this weekend. So by the time this airs, it'll have one more evening, right?
Right.
And then what's next? Annie. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I've been talking to the dog
Oh.
The star of the show,
I
in my
didn't
opinion.
know. The dog is staying at your hotel?
Yes, the dog will be coming. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know somebody famous. Addie knows all the celebrities. So anyway, so there's just so much going on. And because we want to talk, talk about things that are happening in our lives, but also community, because it's so important to us.
It is. And one of the things that I've really talked to the girls the last couple of days being back at work at the hotel about traveling, because we're in tourism, we're in hospitality, and we actually have the ability within a hotel to make or break somebody's entire experience.
That's true.
In the city they're in.
That's true.
And so it's so important. It's so very, very important that we make sure we've got our best self on if we're customer facing, and really knowing our area, knowing what there is to go do and see, especially like this week being Connie Mack World Series, we have a little bit of everything staying with us. So we've got umpires, we've got parents, we've got family members, and then plus our normal business travelers. And, everybody wants to get out and do something and see, some people have never been here, and it's very different than the large city that they came from. And so it's so important to know where you live, know what the offerings are, and have some favorite things that you can share with somebody. We love to share the chili pod. That's one of our favorite restaurants, and we send people there like crazy. Right. And because they get the New Mexico flair, and it's home cooked. It's some of the very best food you can find in this area in a restaurant, and so just those little things. When I travel, I like to look at what communities are doing, what events they're having, and what is the draw, and what can we bring here? Something that I saw in Chinatown, which I love going to every Chinatown in every big city, was plant shops, not flower shops, plant shops. And
I want to open a plant shop.
Oh my gosh, Jamie, I want to open one too. That was one of my 8 businesses.
Let's do it.
Let's open it.
Not like a florist, but you're talking about like
plants.
Like
like plants like we've got all
over
here.
Like succulents and plants.
And they were just little tiny spaces.
I know.
And they didn't need a lot of room. And there was plants hanging from the ceilings and the walls, and they would, roll their carts out. There were plants on the front. Oh, I've got goosebumps thinking about it. But all I could think of was, I could open a plant store downtown, and it would I think it would do wonderful.
Oh, it would be great.
It would be fun.
It'd be so great.
Yeah.
See, there's so many things going on.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to not, of course it's
you can do whatever you want.
But I was going to say it's okay to travel. Of course it is. It's okay to get away. But also try to find out what's going on in your own community, and then celebrate that. And then if there isn't anything going on in your community, find out how you can help. Because when we started this podcast, it was coming out of 2020, and we were talking about building positive community, because our communities across the country were
devastated. Everybody was trying to figure it out, and trying to figure out what they were going to do next.
And we talked a lot about like what is it to support local, to be local, and so that's kind of how the podcast started. And so if there's nothing going on in your community, then find out, how do you get involved? How do you volunteer to bring ideas? So you travel somewhere and you get this great idea, bring these things back to your community and try to make it a better place by learning and borrowing from other communities. And that reminds me of our keynote speaker for the Women's Summit. See, I just wrap everything back around.
Right to it.
So Shelley Whitfield is our keynote speaker. She's been on our podcast twice. And I texted her yesterday and asked her to send me her title and sort of a brief description of her of what she's going to be talking about, so we could get it onto the website. And it's going to be so great. And so for our listeners who maybe are big Tim Burton fans, Shelley lives in the Big Fish house. So if you watch the Big Fish movie, the house is sort of part of the movie. It's almost a character, this house. It's very iconic, very recognizable. It's located in Wetumpka, and Shelley owns that house and lives in it. And so she's kind of using a little bit of Big Fish, but also her reinvention, not only in her own life, but with Wetumpka, and being the chamber director. And so I'm not going to say too much about it, but I was so excited when she sent me what she's going to be talking about, because I think it's really going to be great.
And she's just so much fun.
She is fun. Yeah. And so that's just one piece of the Women's Summit, but that whole idea, again, of reinvention, and it can be a community, and it can be yourself, and it can be in a career. But you know, if you are living in an area where there's just so much going on, celebrate it. And if you're living in an area that maybe needs some help, get connected with people, or find out what other communities are doing and bring it there and help build your community. So I think it's important.
Or what are your interests? Maybe you start something, you know, maybe you bring an apple bake-off.
An apple
pie bake-off.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, depending on what size it is. We drove through a lot of farmland coming out of California. And we stopped on the way back. There was only one little stand that was just getting open because we had left so early. And, you know, we kept seeing the big signs, cherries and oranges and pecans and pistachios. And we finally saw one that was open, and man, we pulled in so fast, and I bought this big bag of cherries, and they were gone in 2 days. I ate them so fast. They were so good. But like, even something like that, do you grow something at home that you can just start a little stand?
And no, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and every community is unique, and we all have what is great about our community, and then we all have challenges. Every community has them. And so anyway, that was a great half an hour. I don't even know. So fast. I know, as usual. So again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks you guys for all the great birthday wishes. Things are just moving right along at my house. My life is a little bit out of control right now, but it's all
good for you, though.
It is good for me,
good for you,
because I think sometimes a little bit of chaos is good. It helps you kind of focus in on what's important. Don't sweat
the noise go away.
Don't let sweat the small stuff, and enjoy family and friends. And so thank you for joining us for this episode of Over a Cup of Coffee with Jamie and Addie.